Alright people, the Realme X7 series has been launched in India, and this right here with me is the Realme X7 Pro. Now this phone is the second phone to come in India with the MediaTek Dimensity 1000 plus chipset. The first one of course being the OPPO Reno5 Pro 5G. So stick with me in this video until the very end to know everything about this smartphone, as to how are the cameras, how's the display, how's the battery life, does this phone overheat, etc. All this and more in this video. Hi everyone, my name is Aman Rashid. You're watching Mr. Phone, and this is my review of the Realme X7 Pro. Now before we start, please take a moment and subscribe to the Mr. Phone YouTube channel if you haven't yet, and do hit that bell icon so that you're notified whenever a brand new video drops. With that said, let's get started. Before we get rolling with the review, here's a quick look at all the stuff that you get inside the box of the Realme X7 Pro. The Realme X7 Pro is a beautifully designed smartphone that comes in a thin and light body. In my opinion, the phone has an ideal weight of about 184 grams and it measures about 8.5 millimeter in thickness. Now the phone's frame is made out of polycarbonate, which is a fancy name for plastic. But that said, the in-hand feel is excellent. I mean, when you grab this phone, it feels solid in the hand. And I think that's what matters the most. Starting off from the bottom, you get a speaker, a USB Type-C port, a primary microphone, and the phone's dual SIM slots. The power button is found on the right, that has a cool looking yellow accent to it, while the volume buttons are found on the left. Now these buttons right here are very clicky and offer amazing tactile feedback. Actually wait, just hear this. Don't judge me, but I can do this all day. Moving on, you see the phone's earpiece at the top that also doubles up as a speaker, and a secondary microphone is also present here. For authentication, there's an optical in-display fingerprint scanner which is pretty fast and accurate in unlocking the phone. You also get face unlock functionality. Coming over to the rear, and you'll see that this mystic black color of the X7 Pro is very reflective, but man, this glass panel looks so gorgeous in this glossy finish. Of course, this panel is a fingerprint magnet, so keeping a cleaning cloth handy would really help. So what you have here is a Realme branding at the bottom and the phone's 64 megapixel quad camera system at the top. Overall, I have no complaints about the phone's design and build. The 20:9 flat display is a pleasure to use. Speaking of which, the curved rear panel makes it really comfortable to grip the phone in one hand. So a big thumbs up to the Realme X7 Pro in the design department. Now let's move on and talk about the phone's display. The Realme X7 Pro comes with a 6.55-inch Full HD Plus Super AMOLED display which refreshes at up to 120 Hz and offers a touch sampling rate of up to 240 Hz. The screen is protected by Corning Gorilla Glass 5 and comes with a 91.6% screen to body ratio. There's also a tiny non-obtrusive punch hole in the top left corner that houses the phone's front camera. Now Realme claims that the display on this phone can get as bright as 1200 nits, and while I did not get a chance to test the numbers for myself, I can vouch for one thing. It's that even when you use this phone under direct sunlight, you won't face any problems. I mean, the display gets plenty bright. Apart from this, colors look punchy, there's no bleeding around the edges, and the viewing angles are pretty good. Whether you're watching videos or playing games or simply looking at photos in the gallery, any content looks stunning on this display. Now some people can argue that this panel is kind of a bit too saturated for their liking, but if you ask me, I think this is just okay. So no complaints from my side. In terms of features, you get the usual dark mode, eye comfort and auto brightness. There's also an adaptive sleep toggle present here, which I'm guessing has to do with how long the display stays awake. You also get always on display functionality that does the job. However, in terms of customization and displayed content, the feature is pretty bare bones when compared to the likes of say an OPPO or a Samsung smartphone. For that matter, you also get the option to set the screen color temperature, but then again, this is also very basic. Moving on, just like the Reno5 Pro, the OZ visual effect feature that helps to boost colors while watching content is present here as well. Last but not the least, if you go and look for Realme Lab in settings, you'll find out that this phone also gets DC dimming, which helps in reducing the screen flicker. And there's also smooth scrolling, which to be honest feels the same whether you turn on the feature or not. I say this in a good way because the display on this phone is already so smooth at 120 Hz. So I don't know how does it get any better than this. So I would say that Realme has done a pretty solid job with the X7 Pro's display. But this is nothing new that we haven't seen before. I mean, the company has been making phones with amazing displays for quite some time now. So now let's talk about the phone's hardware. The Realme X7 Pro runs a Realme UI which is based on Android 10. Now anyone who has watched my review of the OPPO Reno5 Pro 5G would straight away make out that this right here, Realme UI, is essentially a version of ColorOS 11.1. However, ColorOS is based on Android 11 while this right here is based on Android 10. Now this can be a disappointment for some users, but otherwise if you ask me, in my opinion, I think the software on this phone is actually good for the most part. See, if you look at it visually, the notification panel, the app drawer, the settings menu, things look pretty neat overall. However, it is the amount of bloatware on this phone that turns me off. There are many useless apps which I know can be uninstalled, but why put them here in the first place? Duplicate apps are again a problem, for example Photos and Google Photos, File Manager and Files app, Browser and Google Chrome, etc. Speaking of the browser app, or for that matter an app called Hey Fun which offers quick games. So during the review period, both these apps constantly used to bug me with spam notifications. So much so that I ended up uninstalling Hey Fun, and since I couldn't uninstall the browser app, I simply disabled it. And so these were some of the bad points about a Realme UI, but on the bright side, there are a ton of neat features in a Realme UI. I mean, simply go into settings and you'll find a variety of features to play around with. For example, a smart sidebar lets you access your favorite apps from any screen, and the good part is that you can add as many apps to the sidebar as you want. With screen off gestures, you can perform specific gestures to complete a certain task or action while the screen is off. A swipe up with 3 fingers lets you enter split screen mode in supported apps, while a 3-finger swipe down takes a quick screenshot. Doing the back gesture and holding it lets you quickly multitask between 2 recent apps. Besides this, there are a lot of things such as app cloner, assistive wall, app lock, private space, etc. Also, gamers would appreciate game space that aims to offer an immersive gaming experience by blocking notifications and boosting performance. Speaking of which, let's now talk about the phone's hardware. Now, I've already told you that the Realme X7 Pro is the second smartphone to ship in India with the MediaTek Dimensity 1000 Plus SoC. This also makes this phone 5G ready for the future, although don't get your hopes high because 5G isn't coming anytime soon. Anyway, this phone comes in a single variant only, that is with 8GB of LPDDR4X RAM coupled with 128GB of UFS 2.1 non-expandable storage. In terms of benchmark scores, the phone scored 5,13,487 on AnTuTu. Geekbench 5 reported a single core score of 771 and a multi-core score of 2,968. Finally, Androbench's storage benchmark showed sequential read and write speeds of 966 Mbps and 492 Mbps respectively. As for the real-world usage, the MediaTek Dimensity 1000 Plus chipset is absolutely impressive. Now I've already tested this processor on the Reno 5 Pro, and I'll once again add that I have no complaints with the Dimensity 1000 Plus inside the Realme X7 Pro whatsoever. The software flies on this phone, apps open fast, transitions and animations are slick, multitasking is handled well, and the phone doesn't overheat. I was easily able to play games such as Asphalt 9 Legends and Call of Duty Mobile at the highest graphics settings without facing any lags or frame drops. For that matter, I tried pushing the chipset and played a graphics intensive game called Genshin Impact. Good news is that the Dimensity 1000 Plus handled this game like a boss. Now the game did stutter a bit at the start, but that was only at the start. Once I got in the groove and the phone settled in, there was zero lags or frame drops whatsoever. Now after playing the game for about an hour or so, I did notice a drop in the battery level by about 15%, but there was no sign of overheating. I mean, the phone does get warm to the touch, but nothing major. There wasn't a single moment where I felt that the phone was getting uncomfortable to grip. The Realme X7 Pro comes with a stereo speaker setup, one speaker at the bottom and the other speaker at the top, which is also the phone's earpiece. In terms of audio quality, I think that the Realme X7 Pro almost offers flagship grade performance. The output is loud for sure, and the stereo speakers pack a punch. Now I won't call this perfect since I feel that the bass could have been handled a bit better. But overall, the phone does a decent job with dealing with the mid-range tones and offering precise treble output. For that matter, the phone performed equally well while I tested its wireless performance. For the review period, I used the Realme X7 Pro with the AirPods Pro, and I have no major complaints regarding the audio quality or even the connection. As for the haptics, once again, zero complaints. Whether you open the multitasking screen, unlock the phone, or simply type a message, the phone has a good vibration motor and hence it offers precise haptic performance. Now this is something that I can only tell you about, but if you're really serious about the phone's haptics and you want to experience how the haptics are on the Realme X7 Pro, I suggest you visit a retailer or a store nearby and try the haptics on this phone for yourself. But trust my word, you won't be disappointed. The Realme X7 Pro features a 4500 mAh battery under the hood that supports 65 watt fast charging. Now battery life on this phone has been good throughout the review period, but the standby times haven't been great. While I was able to last a full day on a single charge with the phone's display set at 120Hz, I couldn't ignore the 10 to 12% drop in battery level every morning. That said, the phone does come with fast charging and it is very fast. You can go from 0 to 100% in just about 30 minutes and that's it. So charging the phone isn't a problem. Overall, a decent battery performance on this phone, I would say, that is if you are a casual user. However, if you are a heavy user and you feel you might end up draining the battery earlier than usual, I would say just keep the charger handy wherever you go and you should be absolutely fine. And a quick disclaimer, it's that I did not test the phone's performance with the screen refresh rate set at 60Hz. And now my reasoning behind this is pretty simple. I think when I have 120Hz at my disposal, why would I want to use 60Hz? But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Now let's move on. Anyway, in terms of cellular and wireless connectivity, you get dual nano SIM slots on this phone along with support for most of the major Wi-Fi bands. This phone also supports Bluetooth 5.0 and aptX HD. I tested the phone on the Jio 4G network and I did not face any problems regarding network connectivity or call drops. The Realme X7 Pro comes with a quad rear camera setup that comprises a Sony IMX686 64 megapixel primary camera with an f1.8 aperture. This is coupled with an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera with an f2.3 aperture, a 2 megapixel black and white portrait camera with an f2.4 aperture, and a 2 megapixel macro camera with an f2.4 aperture. At the front, there's a 32 megapixel selfie camera with an f2.5 aperture. A quick note before I dive into the details, so the cameras on the smartphone have truly impressed me. I mean, the performance has been very good considering this is a mid-range smartphone. Check out some of the samples. This photo was taken during daylight and there is no doubt that the camera has done a very good job. Dynamic range is good, highlights and shadows are handled nicely, and most importantly the photo looks detailed. Now the same photo taken with the AI enhancement on and you can straight away notice the colors look more punchy and vibrant than the earlier photo. To be honest, I actually kind of prefer the photos taken with the AI setting turned on. As for the ultra wide angle camera, once again good performance. Now the details do suffer when you zoom in on the photos, but overall I think the photos look good if you view them on the phone's screen. One more thing to notice is that the color science across both the primary lens and the ultra wide angle lens is also consistent. Anyway, I will let the photos speak for themselves. Here are some samples taken using the Realme X7 Pro. Now this photo taken during the night looks decent, to be honest. I'd say the photo is detailed, however the camera does struggle a bit while dealing with highlights that you can see in the bottom right corner of the photo. For that matter, the sky also looks distorted. But turn on night mode and you'll see a stark difference in the output. The sky, the overall colors, detail and even the sharpness, everything looks much better. Actually, I was totally amazed at how good the camera is at producing detailed images at night. So here are a few samples that I took with and without night mode. Check them out and share your thoughts with me in the comments. In terms of video recording, the rear camera can shoot at up to 4K 60 FPS while the front camera can record videos at up to 1080p 60 FPS. Videos shot at 4K 60 FPS exhibited good details and colors, and while the electronic stabilization does a decent job at reducing shakes and jerks, I really wish this phone had optical image stabilization. But then you have an ultra steady video mode that tries to electronically mimic OIS. However, you can only shoot 1080p 60 FPS videos in ultra steady mode. That said, here are a couple of sample videos, and by the looks of it, I think the ultra steady video does a pretty good job at minimizing jerks and shakes. Now in this another video taken from a moving car, once again shot using the ultra steady mode, I have to say that I was mind blown by the camera's performance. By the way, the front camera can also shoot ultra steady videos, and in my opinion the quality, the resulting output is quite decent. I'll show you some samples and you be the judge. And this is one final sample using the front facing camera of the Realme X7 Pro. This is ultra steady video plus portrait videography. So this is a 1080p 60 fps sample with a good amount of blur around me. So tell me, how does this sample look now? In terms of footage shot during the night, well, 4K videos do have visible noise that you can't ignore, and stabilization could have been better. Also, the camera does a decent job when it comes to maintaining details and handling exposure, but overall the output is just satisfactory. And as for the ultra steady videos shot during the night, while the stabilization is improved, no doubt. However, this time around the footage completely loses out on detail and there's a lot of visible noise, distortion and shimmer in the output. Finally, this last video sample is taken using the front-facing camera at night, and this is once again shot in ultra steady mode along with the blur effect turned on. To be honest, I'm very impressed by the output when I compare this to the rear-facing video samples taken at night. But as I said before, you guys are the main judge, so share your thoughts with me in the comments below. So now it is time for the verdict, and I would just say that I'm absolutely impressed by the overall performance of the Realme X7 Pro. When I initially started using the smartphone, I wasn't very confident about it, but everything changed when I took the first photo with this phone. So when I looked at that photo, I was totally mind blown. Like this photo has been taken by a mid-range smartphone. Since then, the phone has just grown on me. For what it's worth, I would totally recommend that you go and purchase this phone for all the good things on offer. The display is gorgeous, build quality is terrific, battery life is good, and charging times are even awesome. And the cameras, well, that's the most surprising element on this smartphone. As for the cons, my only humble request to the company would be that, guys, please tone it down a bit when it comes to including bloatware apps or, for that matter, duplicate apps. Otherwise, everything is cool, Realme UI is good and well optimized. And that was my review of the Realme X7 Pro. Now I tried to cover each and every aspect that I could think of for this smartphone. But if you still think that I missed something, then please reach out to me in the comments section. Shoot your questions. You can also connect with me on social. The links would be in the description below. As always, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and do share it with others. Thanks for watching, and for all the latest tech content, stay tuned to Mr. Phone. See you in the next one.